Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholes. Today we have our final Japanese folktale of the week, and in this one we get to witness something very special. It's the moment where religions change in a country, and yet instead of ignoring the fact that the religion has changed and gods have changed, although some have stuck around, in Japan they made a point of explaining why some stayed. In today's story, we get to meet one of those and find out why they stayed and how they stayed. And it's really quite fascinating. This is Daikoku and the Oni. A long while ago, when the idols of Buddha and his hosts of disciples came to Japan, after traveling through China from India, they were very much vexed, because the people still liked the little black fellow named Daikoku. Even when they became Buddhists, they still burned incense to Daikoku, because he was the patron of wealth, for everyone then as now wanted to be rich. So the Buddhist idols determined to get rid of the little fat fellow. How to do it was the question. At last they called Yemma, the judge of the lower regions, and gave him the power to destroy Daikoku. Now Yemma had under him a whole legion of Oni, some green, some black, others blue as indigo, and others of a vermilion color, which he usually sent on ordinary errands. But for so important an expedition he now called Shino, a very cunning old fellow, and ordered him to kill or remove Daikoku out of the way. Shino made his bow to his master, tightened his tiger-skin belt around his loins, and set off. It was not an easy thing to find Daikoku, even though everyone worshipped him. So the Oni had to travel a long way, and ask a great many questions of people, and often lose his way before he got any clue. One day he met a sparrow who directed him to Daikoku's palace, where among all his money bags and treasure piled to the ceiling, the fat and lop-eared fellow was accustomed to sit eating daikon radish and amuse himself with his favorite pets, the rats. Around him was stored in straw bags his rice, which he considered more precious than money. Entering the gate, the Oni peeped about cautiously but saw no one. He went on further till he came to a large storehouse standing alone and built in the shape of a huge rice measure. Not a door or window could be seen, but, climbing up a narrow plank set against the top edge, he peeped over, and there sat Daikoku. The Oni descended and got into the room. Though he thought it would be an easy thing to pounce upon Daikoku, he was already chuckling to himself over the prospect of such wealth being his own, when Daikoku squeaked out to his chief rat, "Netsumi-san, Mr. Rat, I feel some strange creature must be near. Go chase him off the premises." Away scampered the rat to the garden, and plucked a sprig of holly, with leaves full of thorns like needles. With this in his forepaw, he ran at the Oni, whacked him soundly, and struck him all over with the sharp prickles. The Oni, yelling in pain, ran away as fast as he could. He was so frightened that he never stopped until he reached Yemma's palace, where he fell down breathless. Then he told his master the tale of his adventure, but begged that he might never again be sent against Daikoku. So the Buddhist idols, finding they could neither banish nor kill Daikoku, agreed to recognize him, and so they made peace with him, and to this day Buddhists and Shintoists alike worship the fat little god of wealth. When people heard how the chief Oni had been driven away by only a rat armed with holly, they thought it a good thing to keep off all Oni. So, ever afterwards, even to this day, after driving out all the bad creatures with parched beans, they place sprigs of holly at their doorposts on New Year's Eve to keep away the Oni. and all evil spirits. And that is the Japanese folktale of Daikoku and the Oni. And again, we get to see that magical moment when religions change in a country and yet some of the gods remain. And we get to understand why and how that happens. And that's something that happens in every religion and every culture. As they amalgamate, these things change. And it's just really lovely that the Japanese people have held on to that, acknowledged it, and given us the story of Daikoku. This is Dan Schulz for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to listen. You can also follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen, and you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Next week, we're headed to Russia for 3 stories, 2 new ones, and one which I really wanted to share again because apparently something happened to the audio from the last time I shared it. So, you'll have to tune in next week to find out what that is. As always, thank you so much for listening.